All right, good afternoon and welcome. Today I have with me Robert Ruszkowski. So, Robert, what do you do? Say hi to our adoring fans.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, my name is Robert Ruszkowski. I'm a former PTVer. I was a producer, executive producer, as well as on-air talent, and just all-around handyman for anything pirate news.
Oh, you did it all.
Yeah, I did it all.
Did you have anything in pirate television that was like your favorite thing to do, or anything else like that?
I did enjoy Hall Talk a lot. I definitely think that was a fun escape from pirate news from the from the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday routine. While I was here before the pandemic began, I was able to kind of start up pirate specials on Fridays, and that was like a good way to kind of begin the creative department that now has grown and flourished since I left. But it was a good way to kind of explore people's interests that might not be interested in news, might not be interested in sports, but they're able to do podcast-esque episodes, reviews, previews, and just like anything that really came to mind, which was a cool thing to be a part of.
Yeah, and that's something that's really flourished since your time at PTV. And one thing that's really kind of changed since you did leave was our studio. And you got a chance to look into that today. What did you think?
It's incredible. It's been a long time coming, but I'm very happy for you guys to move into the world of high definition. Since my 4 years, we were stuck in standard. As I say, it's a huge accomplishment not only for the faculty in the college, but obviously for guys like Mr. Wiki, Pace, Paul Labasi, to be able to set that up and make sure it went well, from beginning to end. I'm sure that there was a lot of hiccups, a lot of obstacles along the way, but I think that it's a monumental shift. I mean, especially for being able to attract students and to be able to give you guys the quality of work that you guys deserve.
But kind of going back to your time when you were at Seton Hall, just a mere 4 years ago?
Don't age me. I graduated in 2020. So yeah, so really just two and a half years. Going on 3 years, going to be this May. So. Yeah.
So fun fact for those listening at home, Rob and I actually talked about this beforehand, but Rob, you spoke at open houses.
I spoke at a lot of open houses.
You spoke at a lot of open houses, period. But in the speaker series, which we just had last night, you kind of spoke to two producers, and I was one of them, and I said that you spoke at my open house, and partially is part of the reason that why I joined PTV.
Yeah, it's kind of full circle, and it is weird, to be to now see the people, some of the students that were potential students, potential pirates, and obviously going to open houses and accepted students day, not only seeing them, join Pirate TV and fill in the shoes of positions that I was once a part of, and I remember, I think you stuck out to me because you came back and you spoke afterwards, and you wanted to find out more and wanted to learn more. I could tell you were going to come to Seton Hall, but it was it's nice, it's kind of like a full circle moment for sure.
Yeah, especially as you sit there in your CNBC pin and I'm wearing my Seton Hall sweatshirt, it is kind of really full circle.
Yeah. I forgot to mention before, I didn't even say my position, but I'm currently the lead assignment desk producer at CNBC Business News in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey. So not too far from Seton Hall, but at the same time, so far away. And it's nostalgic to come back here, see the studio all built up, see the university center obviously rebuilt, and then see some familiar faces, some professors beforehand, and obviously students. But it's nice. It's nice to see you guys are in good hands.
Yeah. So going again, like I said before, going back to kind of your time at Seton Hall and PTV, you talked about that nostalgic quality. So what are some of the steps that you think you kind of did as a student, especially within PTV or just outside of PTV, at least at Seton Hall, that kind of helped you get to where you are today?
Yeah, for sure. I think definitely taking advantage of all the on-campus opportunities we have. I was not only involved with Pirate TV, but I was an assistant news director at WSOU radio station. I was also involved in Student Activities Board, which wasn't obviously directly related to TV, but gave me a lot of good opportunities and good experiences otherwise. Some things that I wasn't involved in, but I know a lot of students and alumni have gone on to great things, like the Setonian newspaper. Pirate News Network is really great, or Pirate Sports Network, I should say, is really great for anyone looking into sports media or the sports industry as well. But something else I took advantage of off campus was obviously the Seton Hall's proximity to New York City, and just being able to intern not only during the summers when we were off, but obviously during the fall and spring, I'm currently an employee at CNBC, but I interned there not only once but twice. During the school year, which obviously was only a small drive away. Being able to have your car on campus, being able to park and commute was a big game changer. And because of that, I was also able to intern at NBC News over one of my summers going into my senior year. So really taking advantage of all that the Career Center has to offer, and the proximity to New York City, and just the connection of a lot of alumni. The reason I really got the first internship at CNBC, there was a couple seniors who were currently interning and kind of put in the good word, to the internship hiring manager. So that's something that I really hope to be able to give back and kind of pass along the favor one day.
So you spoke about kind of taking advantage of those internships and everything else like that in the proximity to New York. Walk us through kind of, there may be people, freshmen or sophomores listening, or even juniors or seniors who this may be their first internship, or they're about to apply for a new internship, or they're about to apply for jobs. Kind of what is the internship process like, especially when it comes to, applying for those big names like ABC, NBC, CNBC, anything else, CBS, anything else like that. Kind of in your experience, what did you find, was there some anxiety with that or anything else like that? What were you kind of going through when you maybe first applied to that first internship?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely intimidating, and unfortunately, I don't have one trick or tip that's able to answer all the questions or solve all the problems. It's really just trying to get a foot in the door. Apply. I had friends who applied to 50, 60 internships, like per season, per semester, and most of the time you're not even going to hear back from most of them. That's the unfortunate part about these, larger companies, is that I would get rejection emails 3 months after I applied, when internship, semesters were already half over, and it's like, well, thanks, I didn't realize I didn't get the internship when, 2 months passed. But it's also the rounds of interviews, I hate to say it, but getting lucky as well. I mentioned it before, but, hundreds, if not thousands of applicants are, applying to these internships, especially, the big names like you mentioned. So a lot of time it's just, getting the right keywords, moving on to the next round, doing a virtual interview, which is kind of, I'm not sure if you guys have done that, but just talking into your webcam for 2 to 3 minutes, which can definitely be daunting and a new experience. And then kind of being able to schmooze over some of the people you're working with, with the third round and maybe even fourth round of interviews. But I think Seton Hall students are in a good position. Whatever writing test I did or whatever interviews I've been a part of, it's usually been high praise, feedback. It can be tough, but all I can really say is just try to get your foot in the door. Don't be discouraged. And once you get that first opportunity, just take advantage of it. Do everything you can to make yourself known, and build on from there.
Right. And I feel like when you say do anything you can to make yourself known, I feel like what people really overlook. I mean, I'm not in the field yet. I'm just a mere senior. But because I interned with CNBC, and what was really interesting in the interviews was those importance of those soft skills. It's like when I was interning, or when I was first getting interviewed by the vice president of talent development, because that was the branch I was in, I was bonding with her over field hockey and over sports and everything else like that. So, I don't know if you want to echo it at all or anything else like that or speak on that, but I feel like it's one thing to not just have the knowledge, but how you present that knowledge, how you talk about yourself, and just how you kind of, like you were saying, schmooze the people that you're working with to kind of get your foot in that door.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, there's no face to the cover letter. There's no face to the resume right at the beginning. But once you get to that, in person, webcam, phone call, or even in person interview stage, you really want to make sure you're remembered, for the right reasons, of course. But have an experience, have a soft skill, have a conversation starter that kind of makes you stand out from the rest, and make sure that you're remembered. Some of the best things on my resume weren't even the experiences I had, because hate to say it, but almost every applicant has those similar experiences. They're all going to be involved with their college radio station, their college TV station, but they might not have the bragging rights that I like to. I always like to include some personal achievements at the bottom, and it could just be 2 lines, but because I was involved with the Student Activities Board, I said that I was able to interview, Josh Peck and Kiki Palmer, W. Kamal Bell, and even some of the artists like AJR that came. And even if it was just, a short meet and greet, you never know who's a fan of AJR. You never know who's a who's a fan of CNN or so on and so forth. And something else that I don't mean to brag, but this is it's on the resume, and every interview I've been a part of, it's always been asked about. When I was in high school, and they always say don't include stuff from high school. I included it. I got the chance to meet Pope Francis when he came to New York. So that is something that I just put at the bottom, and every single recruiter has asked me about it. So if you have a fun fact, 2 truths and a lie about yourself, just put it on there. You sang with a celebrity, you toured the presidential, the Oval Office or whatever. It's just something that's able to kind of start a casual conversation and it makes you get remembered, which you never know where that can take you.
Right. And I mean, Josh Peck is actually, I think when we checked on our channel, by the way, follow us at Seton Hall PTV, our YouTube channel and all of our social media. But when we did, somewhat of research, Josh Peck is our most viewed video.
Is it the most viewed?
It is the most viewed.
And do you know who did that interview? Tommy Rinaldi.
I thought it was you.
Baby blue eyes, Tommy Rinaldi.
Dang. Oh my goodness. But yeah, but it's
I was behind the camera.
Okay.
Behind the camera.
I got you. But that's what I mean. I mean, like you said, you never know who's going to see that. I think it's like 2.7 thousand views or something, which, I mean, for a college TV station who just works on YouTube.
I remember the AJR interview was also getting some views, and that was probably, I don't say not one of our better interviews, but it was kind of like in the hallway, and it wasn't exactly, it was rushed, more not because of our lack of preparation, because of just the management and the hectic day. But you're right, you never know, especially in the age of TikTok, in the age of Twitter and going viral, you never know what's going to be the one video to make it. So it really shows you, like, always put your best foot forward, because it's not always the one you want to be viral that goes viral.
Right. And that starts at college, and when you go from college then to the work field, what you do at PTV or WSOU or those on-campus things, or even in class, when you build that reel, that's what employers are going to see. So with that, I mean, what's the hiring process like, at least for your role that you kind of found? Was it a lot of these interviews? How many people were there? Just kind of what you remember generally, but you don't tell us what they asked you at your interview, but kind of what did you experience with your hiring process?
Yeah, I do think the process is always evolving. I mean, obviously I was hired during the pandemic.
Sure.
So like there was absolutely no in-person, interviews whatsoever. But I do think a lot has changed. I mean, for better and worse, there's a lot of, like I said, those webcam interviews, a lot of rounds, some writing tests, some trials, and especially, when you're applying to some of those bigger names, they're going to make sure to vet you to make sure you're not only a good person, but a good writer, a good, you have good experience. So of course, you first need to apply. I think because I was friendly with some of the former recruiters and some of, the former bosses I had, they actually were the ones that reached out to me and were like, hey, apply to this position, which is always a good sign. So I forgot to mention it last night at the speaker series, but always be open to, a job or a role, even if it wouldn't be your first choice. Never say no, especially when, if you get the opportunity for someone to reach out to you. I didn't originally want to be a desk associate. I was actually a desk intern, way back when, and I was saying, like, I would never want to do this job. This would not be my first choice. It wouldn't be my second, third, or fourth. But, I applied. It was, during the pandemic, there wasn't a lot going on. I was fortunate enough to get the position, and then I ended up falling in love with it. You kind of curate it to whatever you need, and, things aren't always as bad as you think they are, especially, when you're looking back, and, it can be intimidating when you're an intern, but then you're experienced and you're able to get, the hang of it. In terms of the hiring process, though, I can't speak for every company, but like I said, it's, you do need a little bit of luck just to get, to the further rounds, because, like I said, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of applicants. And most of the people that vet, are going to be within an HR department, or, someone that won't necessarily be working with you. So it kind of is a little bit of luck. But once you do get onto that interview process, it's important to do as much research as you can about the company, to not only know about the company you're applying to, but also the topic and, whatever events are going on, whether it's sports, be able to, speak about the biggest sporting events. Obviously, the World Baseball Classic just recently ended. If you're applying to something soccer related, know who won the FIFA World Cup. You want to make sure you're not knowledgeable not only on the company you're applying to, but also just the general, sports. Because going forward, I mean, especially with news and sports, the stuff you'll be covering next week, next month, next year hasn't happened yet. So you want to make sure that you have candidates who can kind of explain and are knowledgeable about, events, not just the, how to push the buttons.
That's a good point. And especially what you said before about, being open. It's not the last job, hopefully. It's not the last job you're ever going to get.
Yeah.
There's always something, there's always something down the road. And you spoke about that last night when you said, have a 1 year, a 5 year, and a 10-year plan. Yeah, that could change, but you at least need to know that first place of where you're going, understanding that there's always things afterward. So kind of keeping with that same mentality, when you came out of college and you applied, you said that you were, you spoke last night again about there was a brief time where you wanted to do sports. Then, okay, now you're in late night, and then now you're in news and everything else like that. Now you're in business news, which is very specific. So what was it like, jumping into that world? You said you've never taken a finance class or any business classes, although we have great ones here at Seton Hall. Stillman School of Business, #1 leadership development program in the nation, subtle plug. But kind of what was it like jumping into something that you're familiar with, but a branch of broadcasting that you've kind of never really even seen before and understanding that lingo?
For sure, yeah, that's a great question, and it's something that I never even pictured myself being a part of. I mean, like you mentioned, I always wanted to go the sports route, and then I always wanted to go, or then I wanted to go like the late night route, and then really general news route, and I was kind of like, okay, business news might be a good, foot in the door, first step, kind of like I'll stay here for, a few months or whatever, and then a few months became, okay, I'll stay here for a year, and then a year became, okay, I'll stay here for 2 years, and now I'm obviously still there 2.5 years later. I did kind of fall in love with it, and whether it was a forced romance or whether it was natural. I mean, just the way business news works, how it does kind of impact like every part of our lives, whether it's the food we eat, the clothes we wear, the electronics we buy, the shows we watch. It kind of all has a price tag on it. It all has a supply chain on it, and it's also, I mean, this is going a little more wide now. It's do the research on what industry you're going into and kind of being aware of the hours, the holidays, and the time frames that it works for, because I always love sports, but I'm not sure at one point I realized that if I'm working in the sports industry, I'm going to be working when there's sports, and there's sports in evenings, weekends, holidays. So if you'd like to enjoy your sports, maybe going into sports might not be the best option. However, I know people who are diehard sports fans that are obviously very happy in the industry. With all that being said, business news actually turned out to be pretty good because, as you know, the stock market doesn't trade on the weekends. So I have almost every weekend off, which is a nice perk that you can't say about politics or general news. So. And it's also just finding out, what might be the best opportunities. Obviously, a lot of people start off with local news, but there's kind of local news everywhere. You don't have to be in, you don't have to get a job in New York City or Los Angeles right off the bat, and you can obviously, create more long-form pieces, kind of really get a connection with the community there. Whereas, some people prefer politics and, know that if you're going into politics, you're probably going to have to move to Washington, and I don't think everyone really realizes that, going in, and there's a lot of weekend shows for that and all.
Now, you kind of mentioned briefly that one of the perks about, working at least in the business broadcasting is, I guess what we'll call it, that you have weekends off. That's super nice. So you are now in a position where you can, make your own schedule and everything else like that. So maybe coming out of college, it's a little harder to say, I'm only going to work this day or something else like that. And that's part of being flexible. But kind of what does your schedule look like for somebody who's thinking of going into it, or who maybe think that it's just every day 9 to 5, and when I clock out, somebody else will take my shift? Kind of, what does your schedule look like?
Yeah, so it really is dependent on what department or show you're going into. I mean, obviously, if you're working the show that goes from 4 to 5 p.m., you're not going to be coming in at 6 in the morning, but you're certainly not going to be coming in at 3 in the afternoon either. You kind of, obviously, if it's a whatever show that is, whether it's the 8 p.m. General news show, or if it's the 10 a.m. Saturday morning political news show. Just kind of be aware of that, and obviously be flexible. It might not be your first choice to join the show that airs at 5 in the morning, but if it's an open position and they're calling your name, you better take it, at least for a little while. So I'm fortunate and I guess unlucky to work on the assignment desk in the case that, as I mentioned, I can work anywhere from 4 in the morning to 8 p.m. During the weekdays. So even though I have a choice with my schedule, I still have to work those shifts. I just kind of choose when I work them. So, wow. If I have a dinner or a speaker series, one night I can elect to work the 4 a.m. to noon shift that week. And then to some people, like I mentioned, 4 a.m. sounds like it's nothing. So some of these guys work 12-hour shifts overnights at sports logging hours, and then for some people, including myself, who could barely wake up for an 8 a.m. class, twice a week.
Here.
Yeah, I was waking up 7:50, and to think that that same kid who is oversleeping and pressing snooze on his alarm is now waking up at 2:45 in the morning to drive 40 minutes to New Jersey. It goes to show you that if you're dedicated and if you want it, you'll make the time for it. But it is important to kind of realize that, and not only with the time frame too, but also with hybrid and working from home. I know that a lot of companies, including NBC Universal, wants employees back in the office at least 3 days a week, if not more. But some of these roles, and especially editors, and especially some of these more behind the scenes positions, obviously can be done from home. Whereas some of them, behind the scenes work needs to be done in person. If you're the person responsible for feeding in and feeding out all these cameras, you can't do that from your laptop in your bed, But if you're the one maybe just writing a news blurb or kind of cutting some video, you might be able to get away with, doing it from home a couple of days. You might be able to work out a schedule here and there. So obviously for, everyone that's in college now or everyone that's, pursuing careers, keep that in mind and make sure to ask it during interviews as well. Is this a remote opportunity? Would there be work from home days and so on and so forth?
So you said before that it's all in what you make of it. The time input is kind of measured in the output of, how something's pulled off or if it is pulled off, period. So what would you say, kind of keeping along that mentality, what's the most rewarding part of your job? Maybe kind of give a brief overview about what it is that you do day in and day out, and kind of what are those moments in your job that make you, say like, this is all worth it. All the waking up at 2 a.m.
Yeah, for sure. So some of the daily responsibilities, I work directly with field producers and reporters. They often give me their scripts or kind of what their vision is for the head, and I create the elements. So the lower thirds on the screen, the full screens, the charts, graphs and boards to be able to match their script and kind of match, what they want to portray to the viewer. So I kind of, and some reporters are very good. They know exactly what they want, when they want it, and how they want it. And then some of them, they say, produce it up. And that's almost, some of the big challenge, with 15 minutes to air or 30 minutes to air, and, you just got a minute of text, and you got to know where to put the, intraday chart, and you need to know, what to put in the banner. And, some of these are more industry terms, so I'm not going to keep throwing them out like that. But, some of the most rewarding parts is, when you essentially, put your hands up, done, with mere seconds to go before you're on air, or maybe you are even dropping in one last element, while the hits, getting on air. So some of that's, the most exciting and the most stressful parts are often the most rewarding. And it's also, it's nice when when you get complimented, when, your boss sees a banner and goes, who made that lower third, or who made that, that's really good. Or like, oh, this is a really good graphic. And, to know that you were at least part of the, production process for that is pretty nice.
Sure. Yeah, and that's something that, 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
You've been there 2.5 years. You knew not you knew nothing about it, but you knew next to nothing about, lingo like that or anything else like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's got to be so cool.
I'm still learning, new stuff every day.
For sure.
And especially going into business news, I was definitely intimidated, first. Even when I was an intern, I was asking producers, like, how do you know what WTI crude is? And they're like,
right.
We don't, and it's true that, you're never expected to know everything, and you kind of learn as you go. And especially one of the main stories recently is with the, the ongoing banking, turmoil. We try not to use the word crisis as much. Kind of seeing like a bank run in person, and like for some of you out there who might have only seen, It's a Wonderful Life, where he's like, that's a physical bank run. Some of my colleagues had to look up, what is a bank run? How does that happen? And seeing, especially when the Fed and the U.S. government changes some of their global currency policies. It's okay if you don't know what that is. Literally, when I got on at 4 a.m, I spent from 4:30 to 5 a.m. just Googling new phrases that were in some of the articles, and it's always good to be able to keep learning and and to understand that you're not going to know everything, and the more you know, the less you know, type of thing.
Yeah.
The more topics you cover, the more you find out that they didn't cover this at in TV1 or TV2.
True. Yeah. We're here for the technical elements.
Yeah, exactly.
Not necessarily.
It builds a good foundation, though. It certainly does.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So we've kind of gone over the highs. What's the hardest part of your job? Not to cover the lows, but anybody going in, Is it that schedule, or is it that, my God, the rush that you get in once your foot hits inside the door, you are expected to go, 0 to 60 in 3.5?
I mean, besides the tight deadlines and the early mornings, which you obviously kind of work your sleep schedule around that. For some people like myself, where it can change week to week, that can definitely be a challenge. Trying to balance the social life too. Obviously, going from like a college campus where you can, I would say, skip a class, God forbid, but you can't necessarily skip work. You obviously have PTO, you have days off, but there are some times when work comes first. Some of the hardest parts, I do have to say, the tight deadlines. And just knowing that you're not going to be able to spread out the work evenly, throughout your 8-hour shift. Sometimes there's nothing going on for 4 hours, and then your last 4 hours are, pedal to the metal. All hell's breaking loose, and just because you have to write 3 stories in that 1 hour doesn't mean if only I could spread it out evenly and kind of like almost like you're writing a paper. Do 1 page a night or do 1 page an hour. Sometimes you're required to do a lot of assignments in a short amount of time because the news isn't out yet, the video isn't fed over yet, and just kind of being able to roll with the punches and, kind of a deal with the waves.
How do you adjust to that, though? I mean, if you walk in and it's like, you got breaking news like you had talked about when the Queen passed away, or, the Capitol riot on January 6th. I mean, it's like, how do you adjust in those moments to just go from, okay, everything's going smoothly, and then boom, we're off to the races?
Yeah, exactly.
What's the mindset change?
It really changes, from instant to instant, and it's I don't want to use the word funny, but it's always a little jarring when the new year comes, because not to let you in on an industry secret, but as you might know, a lot of obituaries and a lot of in memoriams are made beforehand, so that whenever a celebrity dies, we're ready for it. So when I mentioned the new year comes is because that's when they update everyone's all the presidential obituaries. So we already have the one that says Obama from whatever year he was born to 2023 to 2023 to 2023, and you sign into work and you're like, oh my goodness, like what happened overnight? Did Oprah die? And it's like, no, it's just that we're ready for it. And it's actually it used to be the stereotypical entry level job where you would write the obituaries for people who were still alive. It was kind of your way to get into the writing industry. So and so was blank years old and won this many Tonys and started their career here and went there, and so on and so forth. I mean, obviously, with the Queen and stuff like that, when there's also like a few days when it's coming, it's a little easy to prepare. You're able to kind of create the packages. You're able to create the the graphics ahead of time, and you kind of have people on the floor ready to go. But obviously, with something like the January 6th riot and insurrection, there's kind of a moment where it's like, oh, like this is happening, and this is getting like more and more extreme. I remember it was actually I was only 2 months in, and I was working from home that day, but a reporter wanted me to cut a sound bite from from someone speaking on the House floor, and then 10 minutes later they're like, a producer told I asked the producer, like, oh, do we still need that sound bite? They go, oh, we don't need that anymore, because it was obviously escalating slowly but surely, and then to go into 8 hours of nonstop, non-commercials, breaking news coverage, you really just never know what you're going to walk into, and it kind of shows you really need to leave whatever you're dealing with, I don't want to say at the door, to sound like a stereotypical basketball coach of some sorts, but you really need to be on your toes and ready to go. There are some days I say, like, man, if today wasn't a Friday, it would it'd certainly be something, but you have those longer news cycles, but you do have those weeks that fly by, and it's like, oh, it's Friday already. But you have some of those days where there's especially in the business news world, a market crash on Tuesday, and then you still got to come in on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, whether the sun's shining or not. You kind of need to be able to deal with it.
Yeah, that's a great insight. Oh my gosh! And when you were talking about the obituaries, all I could think about was Betty White when they almost announced they had all of it ready to announce that she had turned 100 or 101.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's just jinxing themselves, but.
Yeah, I mean that's something completely different, but that's the flip side of it, which is very scary. So, all right. So looking to the future, and you said you wanted to kind of help students in everything in any way that you can. So my last 2 questions are specifically for students, if you're ready for them.
Sure.
First one, what is a piece of advice that you think that an undergrad should know? Or what is, another way of putting that is, what is something that you wish you knew when you were an undergrad here?
One piece of advice that I think is important for undergrad students to know is that every professional that you come across, whether they're on air, off air, in the industry for 1 year, 10 years, 30 years, they were all where you are today. They were all once students. They were all once scared individuals applying to their first job. And, they'll probably tell you, you probably don't even need to ask, because they'll tell you, oh, it was so much harder when I was applying. There was no digital there. We had to actually cut the tape, with actual razor blades, and there was no, news sources and Twitter and social media to get sources from. But what I'm trying to say is that every professional was once, an amateur or once a beginner. So it's okay to feel frightened. It's okay to not know what to do. It's okay to take a little while and make mistakes. But it's also comforting to know that it's going to work out. It's going to work out. Everyone goes on a different path. Not everyone goes on. Not everyone sticks to the 1 year, 5 year, 10-year plan that they have in mind originally. You have friends out there. You have alumni networks out there, and it's going to work out.
That's so inspiring, though, and that's such a human way of looking at, even an executive producer or something else like that. Everybody's got to start somewhere. So, and one of the places, subtle plug, one of the places that they can start, at least here, is in those, co-curriculars or extracurriculars or clubs and organizations or even in their classrooms. So kind of sticking to, because this is a pirate television,
Your school, your station.
Your school, your station. Thank you for bringing that back once more. We haven't really said that too much recently, so we'll have to bring it back. Yeah. So how do you think that your school, your station, otherwise known as pirate television, prepared you to get where you are now?
It gave me a very good foundation, which is all you can really ask for pirate television, because it is tough to be able to prepare someone for the business news industry, the on-air sports industry, the off-air writing industry. But I definitely think it taught you the basics. It taught you how to push the buttons, what's expected from a simple newscast. And then once you get in the professional world, it's okay, now turn it up to 100. Now times it by whatever. Where it teaches you the basis, but nothing can really prepare you for, I don't say what's out there, but what your role requires until you get there. It's important to know that these are building blocks, and that you're going to build upon them. You have your whole rest of your career to kind of learn more, build upon that. So it really is important, though, to take advantage of it as much as you can to make sure you have a strong foundation, before graduating, before heading out into your professional world. Yeah, and to make sure you make some friends along the way, because you never know where they'll pop up again. You never know whose business card you hold on to. It turns out to be good. Whose email you stay in touch with, that turns out to be an on-air person who's looking for an assistant producer, or so on and so forth. And it's nice to keep in touch with people, and make sure you recognize some pirate alumni out there.
Well, speaking of pirate alumni, you are one, so thank you so much. You are.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. This was a pleasure.
This was a blast. Thank you so much for joining us. You can feel free to catch the next Pirate Television Speaker Series. We will announce it on our Instagram page. And until then, this has been, you want to introduce yourself again?
Robert Ruszkowski, CNBC Lead Assignment Desk Producer.
And Claire Wolfe, Field Producer for Pirate Television. Until next time, we'll see you on our social media channel. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da-ba.